It could. Oh yes, I've thrown the order off, haven't I? Yeah, that's all right. Yes, well I wasn't drinking, was My God. This is kind of about my personal GFC, as they call it. I just learnt that on watching the news yesterday. Found a TV and GFC, it's global financial crisis. Sounds like KFC, I know, which is something slightly different. GFC.
They're responsible for it.
It's that one.
Oh, it's that one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, sorry. I keep forgetting. Yeah, you're supposed to know what we're doing. And in financial blues today, shares in my life plummeted 22 cents due to record low interest. My self-esteem dropped 2 points against the Dow Jones, whilst my libido rose steadily against the Nikkei. There was a powerful period of panic selling, and this lack of consumer confidence in my soul's recast profits resulted in a rush in the lack of a viable future market. A vote of no confidence on behalf of the board resulted in a poor forecast for the coming quarter. Analysts say this is due to the fact that my life did not perform as well as expected in the previous quarter, a result made worse by the overstating of my ego, which, when finally floated, turned out to be worth only a fraction of its stated value. Meanwhile, investors in Catholic guilt pulled out at the last moment. It's a bit cheap, that one, isn't it? Heartbrokers reported increased activity in their sector due in part to the success of the cold fusion technique pioneered by a pretty little 34-year-old who has since left my firm. The resulting brokered heart was somewhat temporarily lifted by a large injection of liquid assets, giving it the shot in the arm that I so badly need. Unfortunately, my brokered heart returned to its original low in morning trading. Also, pride lost sense, falling steadily, and was found floating bloated and unconscious in a pool of its own investment potential. Privatised parts performed badly after the injection of liquid assets proved too large. This looked to result in the loss of a new foreign interest. However, a spokesperson for this new foreign interest said, this sort of shit happened all the time, and she was confident that with the sight of her stripping down to her assets, prospects would rise and said parts would once more perform solidly. Meanwhile, analysts are warned of the government's plan to sell off the remainder of my soul. A spokesperson for the PM's office said, please stop calling. But when press continued, how did you get this number anyway? My subconscious has been subcontracted and my penis is in the hands of receivers. That's another cheap one. While some major investors have been burnt, it's hoped that the market will rally behind my life and my bull market will once more generate the great profit. At present, net profits consist of a room in Sydney the size of a large shoebox and a series of badly written poems about me. Of course, one steady performer throughout the quarter was my attitude problem. A true blue chip on my shoulder stock, which has regularly outperformed most other aspects of my personality. Well, as far as my sanity is concerned, the figures are still out, but if the personal hygiene and happiness indexes are anything to go by, prospects aren't good. Lungs, liver, bowel and kidneys were all depreciating steadily in value, were expected to survive at least till the end of today's trading. Leaves grew 5 points on trees, gazelles grazed and gamblers lost money like shit down a river. The sun rose in early trading but fell later, followed by a takeover by the moon. I got 40 years of daylight savings and it won't even buy me a drink. And speaking of time, it was about time I wrote a poem about time, and this is it, here. It's called Time, and it's about time. Perhaps the idea is a little behind the times, who knows, which means at some time it was ahead of its time. But only time will tell, and so far it's keeping quiet. I mean, what if I've already had the time of my life and I just didn't realise? Perhaps because I was so far ahead of my time at the time. Or maybe it'll happen any time now and not before time. Although if it's not before time, it must be behind the times. Speaking of which, my grandmother used to tell me about the way things were in her time. I decided her time moved slower than mine, or so it seemed at the time. I decided her time was in 3/4, like a waltz. Whereas ours is a more common time, 4/4, like a pop song. It made sense at the time, although whether or not it made sense of the time, only time will tell, and like I say, I can't get a word out of it. Are you following me, or am I getting ahead of myself? I mean, I've never been backward in coming forward, but I'd hate for you to end up beside yourself in the end. Anyway, as I was saying, my grandmother was born in Ireland in 3/4 time, otherwise known as 1902 or a waltz. However, she said that at one time she could speak Spanish like her mother. I wondered how long exactly one time was. Shorter than a second? Longer than a minute? Anyway, she got ill. And in no time at all she died. In no time at all. I remember my mother saying that. But then my uncle said her time had come. But surely if her time had come, she can't have died in no time at all, unless she was so far behind the times that she missed her time coming. Or perhaps when her time came, it was too common a time, like a 4/4. Maybe she didn't keep good time, which is strange because she kept everything else. And all in a one-bedroom housing commission flat in Dundas. Anyway, she's dead now, which is neither here nor there and certainly no worse than Dundas. But I digress. It's about time I got to the point. The point's time. Time doesn't really exist, but kitty Prozac does. It comes in little animal shapes. And you say there's nothing wrong with our time? And every second you lose a brain cell, and every day you lose 100 hairs, and every 15 minutes you missed your moment of fame again. And every day you wash, eat shit and brush your teeth and do your time in the office or infirmary, followed by prime time in front of the TV, then sleep and wake up, shit, shower and shave and repeat till fade, which is when your time's up. I've just taken up however many minutes of your time. You could have been watching CSI Dubbo or some such shit. You hope that I'm going somewhere with this. If I do, will it make up for lost time, or is it too late? And there goes another 10 seconds. This is becoming expensive. Time is money after all. But if time doesn't really exist and time is money, does that mean that money doesn't really exist? If so, then what the fuck is my landlord on about? Someday I'll take time out to think about it. I've been meaning to take time out. She's always complaining we never go anywhere. Perhaps I'll take time to stop and smell the roses, although why she can't go without me, I don't know. Of course, you shouldn't take time with other medication without first consulting your doctor, and if there's one thing your doctor can put a price on, it's time. And while there's still a little time, I'd like to point out that they say music is the highest form of art because it can bend time. Oh, that was just a bit obvious, wasn't it? For instance, my brother-in-law, who for argument's sake we'll call Vasily because that's his name, thinks that Deep Purple's Hammond organ solos finish all too soon. Whereas my sister, who we'll call Catherine because that's her name, would argue they last an eternity, or at least 4 minutes of eternity. But that's time. It's relative, or in this case, relative to the relative. And you can choose your friends but not your relatives. Of course, if you took 4 minutes out of eternity, wouldn't it then be something less than eternal? Or is that like trying to calculate infinity minus 3.5? That could take time. And for all I care, it can have it. It's time, gentlemen.
Very good.